you have the template. So the Lexan's marked, and I'm going to use a pneumatic shear. And I'll just turn along the edge all the way through, and then we'll go try it and put it in place, see how it fits. That's it, nice easy cut. Working on the left-hand side glass Lexan. So trim this out, but I had to cut the Lexan larger than the actual template to have it fit on top and on bottom. I just double checked that, made sure everything fit. I don't know if you can see from back there, but there's a black line here. And so basically I just extended it all by about 2.5 inches, 2 1/4 to 2.5 inches. This one up here, notice that with the Lexan, with the protective covering on, I didn't want to take that off because I don't want to scratch it. There's still a lot of work to be done, and I don't want to scratch the window, and so I want to leave that protective coating on. And so rather than drill and guess, grabbed a really bright LED light, hung it up on the other side, put it at about the right angle. Down low, it kind of casts some shadows, but up high, it casts a nice straight shadow straight across. I'm able to mark the inside and the outside of the tubes that I need to drill. Worked really well up here. We'll see when I pull it off how close to center I am, but I'm pretty sure it's just about right on. So drilled forward here, gonna drill up and work my way to the top, and then what I'll do is I'll clamp down forward and then work my way forward on the sheeting here and forward as it rolls across, and then clamp it down on the that front tube and then drill the holes there. Now the question is it lays over. So yesterday I'd actually had this entire sheet cut out and in place. I had an overlap here on the front, and so the Lexan actually came down to about here, which made it really hard to put this down and kind of figure out the angle. Anyway, so I measured it multiple times, I cut it, and I didn't account for that compound curve because as it bent and I brought it over and I laid it down, that Lexan sheet ended up right on the edge, and so I couldn't do the last 3 holes. And so that required that I do an entire sheet because I wasn't able to, there's no way to shift it once it's set on top. Anyways, so now the challenge is on my upper frame piece and that vertical piece in the center, I've already drilled the holes there. And so I could make a template and I could try to transfer those across. I can't use the other sheet because I had to lengthen the height of this sheet to make it fit this way all the way through. So I just can't lay it down and transpose the holes. So what I'm gonna do is I've made a scraper, and I'm gonna take that scraper and I'm gonna peel up the protective layer on the top here, and I'm gonna basically tape it off and then peel up that protective layer, take about a 1-inch strip out of it so that I can see through it. I'll drill all my holes, and then once I've drilled all the holes on the upper and that angled piece, I will put some plastic over it and then retape it down so that it's protected and doesn't get scratched up. The left side windscreen is in place. Need to put a few more plecos on the bottom there. Trimmed off the excess. Took a little bit longer. I did it in small steps, but ultimately got it trimmed down to a manageable size. And then finally I put it on the skin and then put the hinge in place. Had drilled the holes for the hinge and had it all set, and required that I trim off the excess edge. And so you can see it in this picture. Used a cut off a disc on the Dremel tool to cut that the windscreen right up into that tight, so it's right on the curved edge. And then Sam gave me a recommendation to actually bevel that bottom side, and so it's nice and tight all the way up the windscreen to the very top. All along that edge. Now I'll go through and I'll match drill the holes for the hinge and then cleco it in place, and then I'll upsize those holes to number 30s. The left-hand windscreen's in place, the hinge is installed, and it's all ready to go for the attachment of the pilot access door. Working on the front pilot's door, and I have the holes match drilled into the frame. So the first thing I did is pulled the Lexan off and found center on the door frame itself and drilled all of those holes. And so you can see through the Lexan those holes that have been pre-drilled in the frame on center. I pulled back the backing for the Lexan so that I could see through on both sides clear, and those are the holes. And so what I'm doing is I use a 1/16 drill bit, and I come in from on top and find center, and once I've looked on all the sides, the Lexan makes it a little bit challenging because it likes to distort the hole a little bit, so just finding center. And then I'm able to drill through, and it matches up, and the 1/16 gets me into the center of the hole. And then I use a number 40 on top, get the angle right. Silver cleco comes in and holds it in place. So that's how I do the match drilling. I've got a few more to go. Pilot access door is in place. It's riveted with number 40 rivets. This is the moment of truth. I just finished drilling, did a couple updates. I have a couple of 060 aluminum plates that I cut that are angled, so they match the width of the tube, and then they angle up and out, which gives me about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of surface bonding with the hinge itself. And then I have 2 clecos that'll eventually have rivets in there, just to give a little bit of extra strength between the actual frame and the frame of the door with the hinge itself, kind of eliminate pull on the glass and any stress that might happen. So that was one thing that I did, and then drilled everything out. It's all set, so I'm gonna pull the clamps and let's see if the door works the way it's supposed to. And now in theory, that door should close and sit nice. So during the build process, I used a couple of square tubes of 0.5 material, so that those were basically just zip tied into the top and the bottom, and they were zip tied to hold it into place, so that every time I put the door in place I had that 1/2 inch 0.5 clearance from the bottom and from the back to allow me to get the door positioned exactly where it needed to be. And then I used clamps to hold it down and hold it back, and it worked really well. And so now it's going to be time to cut those zip ties off and make sure that everything works exactly the way it's supposed to. Front doors are in place, function properly, so the next step is going to be to install the door locking mechanisms and get those installed so the doors will lock and latch shut. And then once that's completed, we'll take the doors off, clean everything, sand, deburr, get everything set, ready to go. So otherwise, everything looks good. They function. Added a little piece of trim down here to just overlap this hole here where the hinge is not located because the hinge was short, and made sure that it functions. So the front door functions properly, opens, closes, there's no binding, nice and smooth. This closed and latched. The rear door functions. You're hearing a couple of the clecos hitting up here that match up, so, but otherwise everything works. Have a good overlap on the upper part of the window with the two front windows. Everything's here. The back overlap works, and a nice good straight line all the way through, so the overlap matches. So rotates down, door opens. When it's closed, rotates forward. It's nice and secure and tight. There's no play in the door. So the mechanism works really good. So from the inside, you can see that the mechanism right now is in the open position, so the door will open. And then when the door closes, from the inside, you just push that lever forward, it rotates forward, and then it's locked.